Welcome to another edition of Two Up Front, presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Baxter Colburn.
This is Simon Provan.
Simon, it's been too long. I'm glad we're back together once again.
Yeah, actually, it's been a week for us. So
it's too long. Far too long.
I love that you say that.
You've done a show without me already, so I feel like I've been replaced.
Right. And for those of you, again, I just want to throw out there, for those of you who were trying to tune in anyways on Sunday with our special edition show of soccer culture in Milwaukee, it was a good show.
It was.
Except for the audio issues that I was having. So I need a little bit more training. You know, you can teach an old dog new tricks.
I know a guy, Simon. I'll help you out. We'll get you hooked up.
Yeah, that was our first. Well, actually, kind of our second part of the pub crawl, because we were at Moran's Pub in South Milwaukee earlier in the year. We were at the Highbury in Milwaukee on Sunday. Planning on visit the other places: Three Lions, Nomad, the Upper 90. So we'll be doing those, and before we do, I'll make sure I know what I'm doing with the audio equipment.
Absolutely, and hopefully I can be there that night.
That would be fantastic.
Too. It's just kind of how it worked in our life schedules, but we made it work.
Yeah. I just thought it was odd for once. You were the one who couldn't be there, and I was the one taking control.
I know. Usually you're the one that's off being a famous movie star or something, and I'm like, oh, woe is me, the lowly producer. I will do what I can without you.
You got a very important role. I do want to throw a shout out there, though, to Brad Kostreva. Brad Kostreva. Brad, you got a new nickname. He did a great job filling in. We had a good time, talking a lot of different soccer. Again, at the Highbury, we also talked, we had Andy Davian from the Milwaukee Torrent, who we haven't had in a while. Yep. My brother Josh finally came on to talk about the 20th anniversary of the Wisconsin men's soccer team that won the NCAA championship in 1995, beating Duke 2-0 that year.
Wow.
Shutting out every single team that they played in the tournament. And my brother shared with me a fact that I didn't realize. They had 17 shutouts that season.
Wow. Is that an NCAA record?
I don't know if it is. I'd have to go back
17.
and look.
Well, how many regular season games do they play? Isn't it like 18 or 20 or something like that?
No, it's more like 24, 25.
Is it? Okay. Well, even still having impressive. 17 shutouts, though, is huge.
Yes. Yep.
My goodness. All right. Well, we are excited to get another edition of Two Up Front rolling for you today. A quick reminder for you, though, you can get us right here on Sports Radio America from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Fridays. You can also get us on demand anytime you want to on Spreaker.com, on iHeartRadio, and on iTunes as well. And we can also find us on social media as well, Simon. We are all over the place, aren't we?
We are. On Facebook, we are Two Up Front. On Twitter, we are at Two Up Front Soccer. Same thing on Instagram, at Two Up Front Soccer, though we'll admit we don't use Instagram too much.
We need to get a better habit of that.
We
need to remember what our passwords are, I think.
That's what it is. Hey, I just figured out... I had to reset our password for our email account, which, by the way, we've never talked about that.
True.
If you do want to email us, you can do that, twoupfrontsoccer@gmail.com.
Let us know your thoughts. Get a hold of the show, voice your opinion, and let everybody know just what you think about either us or the soccer things in the world also. Well, Simon, it is an interesting time in the soccer world. Depending on how you view it, it is the end of an era.
It is the end of an era, yes.
An era that has spanned since 2001, 14 years, 184 goals, 221 games, something like that.
Something like that, yes. Lots of caps.
Lots of caps, lots of goals.
252.
There we go. I knew there was 2 twos in there.
Fifth all-time in U.S. history.
Yes. We are speaking, of course, about the U.S. women's national team legend, Abby Wambach. She has officially announced her retirement from international and professional soccer as a whole at the end of the 2015 season.
That is right. It's crazy to think, Baxter, that she's fifth all-time in U.S. history with caps. She has 252. That means there's 4 players that have more caps.
That just blows my mind, honestly, that there are more people ahead of her. I mean, you play 252 games. Like, I understand that people like Mia Hamm and Shannon Box and a lot of those other ladies have played a lot of games, even Julie Foudy as well, and Christine Rampone. But 252 games is nothing to laugh home about.
No, not at all.
A fantastic accomplishment in any sport. If you can play 250.
And, at least the women have the Olympics as well. But in case you want to check it out, Abby will be playing December 16th against China in New Orleans to finish up the U.S. Women's National Team Victory Tour, but also, of course, now finishing up her career. So Jill Ellis had this to say: Abby is a player who has transcended our sport, and her legacy as one of the world's greatest players is set forever. What she has done for women's soccer and women's sports overall, I think that's the important part there,
yes.
overall for women's sports, with her amazing talents on the field and her personality off of it, has been inspiring to watch. I'm just extremely happy that she could end her career with that elusive World Cup title and go out on top right where she deserves to be.
Absolutely. And I think another interesting point about this, too, is not only with her storied career in terms of what she did in college, in terms of she scored a total of 349 goals total in her entire career between the international level, her college days. She scored 96 goals while she was in college for the University of Florida, which is ridiculous. And then she scored a bunch of goals as well by playing domestically for the Washington Freedom, Magic Jack, and the Western New York Flash, also in the NWSL. She's not a stranger of scoring goals. It was a little weird, though, during the World Cup, seeing her score without her head.
That's true.
Yes, with her foot, and I'm like, that's.
I think she even had acknowledged that was an odd thing for her to do.
Yes, and I think everybody in America was like, wait a minute, like, I don't think that was the real Abby Wambach. It was like a doppelganger or something that ran out on the field.
You know, I'm surprised, Baxter. I didn't realize this, honestly, until I read this today, that she is only the second American to win FIFA Women Player of the Year. With the early success of the U.S. program,
yep.
You know, the World Cups that they did win, the gold medals that they won, only Mia Hamm is the only other American woman to have won the award. I thought for sure Michelle Akers would have won at some point. Not Carly Lloyd, but of those 99ers, I would have expected a few more.
You would have thought so, yeah, and I feel like Carly Lloyd will be a little bit more in that conversation now, maybe either this year or next year, depending on how the rest of the year goes for her. And that brings up an interesting point you mentioned about Michelle Akers as well. Right now on ESPN.com, under their ESPNW section, their Sports Nation poll question right now is, who's the best player in the history of U.S. women's soccer? Abby Wambach, Mia Hamm, Michelle Akers, or other. And right now, 48% of all the voters, over 1,700 voters, have said that Mia Hamm is still the best.
And I would agree with that. I think overall, Mia was a more well-rounded player.
Was, and she was more of a catalyst for the sport.
Right. I mean,
too.
she was the Claudia Reyna as well. I mean, she controlled that team. She was the heart of the team. That was such a fantastic team. It's actually still a little weird for me to hear about Abby Wambach retiring when I grew up watching the 99ers. You know? I grew up watching Mia Hamm and Brianna Scurry in goal, Michelle Akers, watching all those players. So it's still a little odd for me, in a good way, to see the celebration that Abby Wambach is having of her career.
It is, yeah. And I mean, you look at it, too. She's got a World Cup trophy in her case. She's got 2 gold medals. She's just had a storied career that I think almost anybody that's ever played the game of soccer, men or women, would just be jealous of.
Yeah, and she the only reason she didn't play in the 2008 Olympics because she broke her leg.
Yeah.
So could have added to that legacy. But my goodness, what a legacy to have, as you were saying, 2 gold medals, World Cup winner.
FIFA Player of the Year
FIFA Player of the Year, right, which, by the way, was 2012.
So that was very recent.
Yes.
That was very, very recent, only 2 years ago after their gold medal victory.
I think one of the few knocks that you could have on her, if you knew the history at all, which you may have with Magic Jack being down there in Florida, the owner basically treated those players like garbage except for her. And she kept coming out and defending him, and a lot of her teammates got very upset with her.
Yes, I know that was a bit of a controversy for a while with everything going on with Magic Jack. And when I heard that the team was folding, that the league was folding, I'm like, oh, okay, great, now what? And I was kind of starting to figure out who the women's national team was at that point and start to really have a big longing towards, following women's soccer. But then all of that came out, and I kind of had a bad taste in my mouth for a while with Abby Wambach. I'm like, she just seems like a troublemaker and just wants the spotlight on her.
And, of course, you get mixed in there with all of just the WPS garbage that was going on.
Such a bad league.
That MLS, and a lot of people don't realize this, but MLS reached out to WPS and said, hey, let us help you. We're starting to get this figured out, so let us help you.
Yeah.
And WPS said, nope. We're going to do this all on our own. We don't need your help. Well, that's where the new league has been very smart. Of course, U.S. Soccer, Mexico, and Canada are all helping to back that league. But for the fact that MLS once again reached out to the league and they said, yeah, please help us. And now you've got teams in there owned by MLS teams
as well. Which is fantastic.
It's great.
It's
great
to
see.
They just added a 9th MLS team as well, the NWSL, added the Orlando Pride as well. So that is the first, the newest expansion.
Of course, I'm brokenhearted to see Alex Morgan move from the Portland Thorns down to Orlando.
Yes,
but I understand that move as well. They will say the teams traded, but we all know that was a bit of a league mandate.
PR.
PR. And you figure Portland averages 11,000 fans a game. So they're doing just fine, and this is not me being biased, I promise, but we know how Portland supports its teams.
Yep, exactly.
So they don't need a player to sell tickets. They just love their team.
Yeah, and they still have plenty of players to go and watch as well. But if you want to start a brand new franchise in a soccer city like Orlando, why not bring one of the faces of U.S. women's soccer?
Yeah, and
there?
Arguably the most famous face at this point.
It is, yeah, absolutely. So finishing up, though, with Abby Wambach, just a storied career. Congratulations to her and everything that she accomplished. I know that her name will go down forever in U.S. women's soccer history. I do want to ask you this, though, Simon. I'm wondering if you think that Abby will somehow manage to assume a managerial, a managerial or a coaching role within the national team as a whole.
Great question. I think so. You listen to the way she talks. You listen to her talk about tactics. You listen to her talk about coaches. Mm-hmm. I think that she's got first of all, a type of demeanor in which people are going to look up to and respect.
Yes.
She has that managerial demeanor about her.
I would respect her.
Absolutely. Then, you look at what she has done. But again, just going back to the conversations she's had, when she breaks down a game and during an interview, she breaks down a game. She doesn't use all the cliches like I do.
Yeah.
She actually speaks from an intelligent place. So
you're
I
absolutely
think
right
very
about
much
that.
so. Yeah, I think very much so we'll see her involved in U.S. soccer.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you on that one. It's one of those things where you just want her to be involved and you don't want her to just step away from the game. I'm sure she'll take a little bit of time away.
As well as she should, right?
She should. She's earned it. She's had a fantastic storied career, and it's only fair that she get a little bit of time to step away.
Wouldn't it be something? Now, granted, I'd love the fact if she got really involved with the women's program.
Yeah.
But wouldn't it be something if U.S. Soccer made a statement? Not for the fact of making a statement, but because of her intelligence of the game, actually brought her into the men's side.
You think that somebody that might actually help out? Oh, I don't know, the U17s.
U17. Speaking of which,
whoa, what a transition!
That was fantastic.
Thank you.
That was really
That's
nice.
What they pay me to do.
Yeah, Baxter, we've talked about this before, but U.S. U17s. It used to be out of all the age groups.
Yes,
it used to be almost a guarantee that the U.S. would get to the second round of the U17 World Cup.
Oh, of course.
Then we see them not qualify a couple of cycles ago, and now we see them this year just lay a massive egg. And who are we looking at the helm? Richie Williams.
Might be that time for the axe, Simon.
Well, it's so frustrating to see another coach go out there. The U.S. is, for example, against Croatia. They go out there and they're handling Croatia well. Yes, Croatia is getting more shots on goal, but the U.S. is playing quite well. They go up 2-0 in the first half.
Sure. This
is 2 games ago. Then they come out in the second half and play bunker ball for 45 minutes.
It's not a way to win a game.
It is not a way to win. Show them that you're not scared, because the minute you start playing bunker ball, again, like I would say the U.S. did against Germany, you're showing the other team that I'm scared of you.
Yeah.
They're going to take advantage of that. But then they go and play Chile, who is arguably actually the weakest team in the group, and they end up getting thrashed 4-1. Well, today in the second round, Mexico is the team that happened to play Chile. They beat Chile 4-1.
Oh, what are the odds of that?
And I was watching most of that game. I'd say for about 30 minutes it looked like Chile was the best team on the field, but for the last hour, Mexico just took it to them, to the point that by the end of the game, you see their right back go up and score a goal at the end of the game for Mexico. That's how much Mexico ended up dominating that game.
That's just ridiculous. I mean, if the fact that the youth program and people that follow youth soccer and follow American soccer, they're always like, we need a better youth system. We need a better youth system. We're falling so far behind. Well, maybe because not a lot of thought is put into the youth system. I mean, you don't go out into a major tournament like this and kind of get embarrassed, because, let's be honest, it hasn't been a good year for all men's soccer. At the senior level, the U23s, the U17s, I feel like the word embarrassment kind of just circles around, because nobody has really stepped up to perform the way that we all know that they are capable of doing.
Oh, I'm right there with you. And I think at times, and this would be a good segue into our 50-50 here pretty soon, U.S. soccer is actually trying to do too much. Yes, we need a better youth development. But when you have a federation like U.S. Soccer that's not following with the rest of the world, and this recently came out, and there was, U.S. Youth Soccer was involved in this meeting with U.S. Soccer, and a bunch of other youth organizations soccer organizations were involved in this conversation. But we end up finding out that we don't operate like the rest of the world when it comes to money, in that If a youth club develops like a Messi and he goes out and he gets sold, the youth club actually gets some of that transfer money because they're the ones who developed him.
Well, that would make sense.
It does, but we don't have that system in the U.S.
Well, because we don't have a Messi, and we'll never have a Messi according to American standards.
Right. But and here's the problem with that is, and I belong to a club that does this. I don't know anybody who doesn't belong to a club that has to do a pay-for-play system.
What?
I mean, in order to pay your coaches, in order to take their time to develop kids, they need to be paid somehow.
Obviously,
right?
yeah.
So, but you see in Europe, there aren't these pay-for-play systems. People just play, and that's because these clubs are funded by the amount of money that they get from the transfer fees from the players that they have developed. So, if you want to take a first step, U.S. Soccer needs to start following what FIFA has basically mandated, in that we need to give these clubs the money, and then you know what U.S. Soccer can do is mandate that money has to be used for registration.
So it doesn't make sense to me because the United States is such a world power and so dominant in almost every facet of everything, honestly. But when it comes to following mandated rules, is it because of all the scandals that are going on with FIFA? That why the U.S. is kind of saying, look, we don't want to be associated with what you're doing. We're America. Are we trying to be too proud and puff our chests out?
It predates the corruption in FIFA, the corruption that we know of in FIFA. It predates that. It's just a practice that U.S. Soccer has never put in place.
Well, if they continue to complain, well, why have we never won a World Cup? Why would we not look at what the Germans are doing, what the Italians, with the Spanish, and say, look, they obviously have it figured out. They've been successful for how many years?
Right,
and it's because
we keep talking about we got to get to these inner city youths, which we absolutely do. But unfortunately, people can't spend 5 hours, some of them 10 or 20 hours of their free time not getting compensated for that. Because they got families as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can't expect to just have... You can only have so many volunteers, but when it comes to actually having club coaches, you need to pay those guys because they've gone through classes, they've gone through multiple hours of training. They've deserved to at least make a little bit of compensation for what they're doing to help make your kids possibly, U.S. national team stars one day.
Absolutely. And it frustrates me that so much of our club soccer has to be pay-for-play. And that's the thing, it doesn't have to be. Now, I was looking at some blogs on this topic, and I have to say I can be a pretty cynical person, but there are extremely cynical people out there saying, well, you know what, what's the point of doing this? Because all these clubs will do is just take the money and still charge, Johnny Rebel out there to have to play, charge him to have to play with the club.
Yes.
I get that, but that's why U.S. Soccer then has to put that mandate in there of, hey, we're going to follow this. But for every dollar that you get from these transfer fees or whatever it be, development fees, that has to go back into scholarships.
Exactly.
And that's the only way you're going to get more kids involved with this game.
Yep, no, I completely agree with you on that one. But I feel like we've kind of come to this impasse, Simon, that we need to hash it out in a little bit more official form, which I think is a good way for us to jump into our 50-50 segment that we've got here on Two Up Front.
Yeah, it's ironic because Baxter, I had just said, let's look at what the rest of the world is doing. But I don't always agree with what the rest of the world is doing. I do think there is some uniqueness in America that we don't want to get rid of, and that's what leads us to today's 50-50.
Absolutely. Well, why don't you lay it out for us so the good people understand what exactly we're going to be 50-50ing about?
Right. So U.S. Soccer actually a couple of years ago had talked about having year-round academies, which means that kids in high school would no longer be playing high school soccer. They would have to play with their academy team all year long. Well, also at that meeting that I had alluded to before, they did a lot of pushing for that and basically saying, look, you got to choose either high school soccer or academy soccer. So we're here to talk about in our 50-50 whether we agree that getting kids out of high school soccer and playing academy soccer all year long is a positive thing or better for the development, or if it's a bad thing, that they should play high school and not have to play academy all year long.
Fair enough.
Who wants to go first today?
I can go first. Why not? What's the worst that could happen? I have
nothing.
idea.
Nothing bad at all.
Right. Well, so for those of you that don't know, we each get 45 seconds to defend our point, making for a total of 90 seconds. 45 equals 90, which is a soccer match, one of the fun things that we do here. So we each get 45 seconds to defend ourselves. One takes a positive, one takes a negative, and we kind of go from there. So I'm ready when you are, Simon.
All right, here we go. Tweet.
All right, well, I believe that in the United States, the fact that the player pool is so big that if you do not play club soccer, you have almost no chance, absolutely no chance of being able to get discovered, to even think about playing professionally. And even at this point, a lot of college coaches now are scouting club soccer players. They're not caring about how many goals you're scoring in high school. They're not caring about how good your team may have done last year. They care about the player's production at the club level. It's all about the name, all about the coach that you train under for 5-6 years, and if you can play all year round, that looks even better for them. High school, it's important, but for club right now, if you want to be anywhere relevant in the United States soccer system, you have to play club all year. Otherwise, it doesn't matter.
Time's up. All right, Baxter. Yeah, well, I think I'll just jump right into mine.
Sounds good. Ready and go.
I think what I get upset with is there's this new argument out there that high school soccer isn't as good as club soccer. Now, look, part of this is personal. I've got an older brother who coaches high school soccer. He took one program that went from never making the state championship or never making state to being a game away. He then left that program, moved on to another one recently who also took it to one game away from state. On top of that, he's got players that have now been picked up by the U18 Fire Academy who are training with the Fire Academy. Look, high school soccer, is it uniquely American? For the most part, yes. But you've got professional players coaching at high school level. I think doing academy all year long is doing a disservice to these kids where they're not getting a variety of coaching, and that's huge in development.
Absolutely. Time is up. All right, well, you heard our arguments. Let us know your thoughts. Get us on Twitter at 2UpFrontSoccer, at Simon Provan, at Baxter Colburn. We're going to step aside. A lot more to come before we jump into it.
Plus, you know what? A lot of high school soccer is free.
Oh, that's right. I heard free is one of the best things that you can do for your kids. Is put them in a free program that still helps them develop as a whole.
Yeah.
Huh. Who'd have thought? That's we're miles away from that, Simon. Miles away. We'll be right back. This is 2 Up Front. Welcome back to another edition of 2 Up Front, presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Baxter Colburn.
And this is Simon Provan.
All right, Simon, time to fly across the pond, as we always do here on 2 Up Front. Taking a look at the Carlington Cup action.
Carling Cup?
Carling Cup, not Carlington.
The league. Let's just call it the League Cup. How about
They've
that?
got so many damn cups, honestly. I love England, but figure it out, guys. Seriously, you don't need 43 cups.
But they don't like the playoffs, right?
No. Which I think would be awesome if they did the playoff system.
Just saying, all their cups are tournaments or playoffs, basically, right?
Exactly.
Anyways, yeah, Chelsea. We didn't think he really was on the hot seat a couple episodes ago. Well, you know what? I'm telling you, he is now.
Oh, absolutely.
Now.
They go out and they draw 1-1 with Stoke City, and then they go to PKs and they lose 5-4 in penalty kicks.
They have, under Mourinho, they've gone to PKs 5 times and they've lost every single time. I just saw that.
Fun fact. The more you know.
And they're still at 15th in the league? Is that where they're sitting?
They're not in the top 10, or not the top 10 to my knowledge. Not even.
No, they're not even close to that. Yeah. So
all they really need to do is win like one league game, and they're semi-back in contention.
But we're talking about Chelsea here.
I know.
We should be talking about them fighting for a spot up top, not a spot to get in the
Chelsea
top half.
Chelsea is 15th with a 3-2-5 record, 11 points overall.
And then they go out and they lay a total egg in the League Cup. Now, I understand that some of these cups really don't mean as much. We saw that with Arsenal and Wenger coming out and saying they lost, as you called. Arsenal lost 3-0 to Sheffield Wednesday, and Wenger came out and said, I'm not really concerned about the loss. I'm concerned about my injuries before I'm concerned about the League Cup.
Which I understand,
right.
but still.
If you're a team that's not supposedly, you are a powerhouse usually in the Premier League, and you're suffering in league, you use these cups to get the ship back into place, to right the ship.
Exactly.
And Chelsea can't even do that right now.
Well, I mean, look at it. Arsenal sits in second place overall in the Premier League table. They've got 7 victories, 1 draw, 2 losses, 22 total points. They're technically tied for first place, but goal difference and all that other craziness. I'm not going to lie. Looking at this top 5 in the EPL table, look at it. Man City, Arsenal, West Ham, Man United, and Leicester. What?
Every year. Every year we see one or two teams creep in there. At the same time, Leicester,
they actually look good.
They do.
Same with West Ham, which is weird.
Yes, and the crazy thing about Leicester is, and I mentioned this on the special edition show for those who listened, before Christmas, it looked like Leicester was definitely going to drop down to the championship. Yep. And then they really turned things around. They fire their manager. You're thinking, oh boy, here they go making those silly mistakes. But now they're in 5th place right now in the Premier League.
They seem to have their act figured out, honestly, and I think that if you are a Leicester supporter, you're very, very happy with that. So, looking at the other action in League Cup, Everton, way to go, Simon, way to go, boys.
Well, Everton did win, but they also had their backup keeper in there. The loss that Everton had to Arsenal, Tim Howard really was culpable on those 2 goals. So, I hate to say it, but fans are starting to say, hey, take Howard out.
Yeah, it might be that kind of time. Yep. And as funny as we just talked about with Leicester doing so well, they actually lost. They lost to Hull City 5-4 on PKs after drawing 1-1. And then you look at the action that actually took place here on Wednesday when we were recording this show. Liverpool, they finally get a victory, 1-0 over Bournemouth.
That was today,
yes.
I hate to correct you on air, but,
That's what I said. I said today.
When
we're doing the show
yes, I'm sorry.
You're fine. Totally fine.
Anyways, take it away, Baxter.
Thank you. Manchester.
I thought you said last Wednesday.
No. I said today.
Okay.
That took place today.
Yes, gotcha.
It's all good. Anyway, Manchester City dropped 5 goals on Crystal Palace, so they continue to roll, going to 5-1 with that victory. Southampton upsetting Aston Villa 2-1. You were a little fiery about that one when we brought it up off air, weren't you, Simon?
About
Villa?
Villa, yeah. Well,
all you just kept saying is Villa.
Well,
Villa.
they just horrible in league.
Yeah.
Are they bottom in league? Is that I believe they are?
Aston Villa?
Yeah.
They are 20th with a 1-1-8 record.
Yeah. So there's been, speaking of Villa, this is what I was talking about, is the Sherwood was finally let go.
Yep.
Ironically, he was let go a day after he said, no, I think my job's completely secure.
Awkward.
Of course, he did himself a disservice by saying, there's no way we're going to be in the bottom 3 next year. We will stay up top in the Premier League.
And realistically, they look like a decent club, but then crash and burn, hardcore.
So Bob Bradley's been linked to Aston Villa. This is the second time he's been linked. But Bob Bradley already came out and said, no, nobody's contacted me. Let it go.
He's not posh enough.
Baxter's greatest argument ever in a 50-50.
I was like, he is not posh enough. And for ever since, I feel like I need a shirt made like not posh enough for the Premier League with Bob Bradley's face on it. And then you also had the final game taking place today in league action as Manchester United go to 0-0 draw with Middlesbrough. And you're like, okay, well, maybe United's just having an off day, no big deal. They go to extra time. They still can't score a goal. Then they go to penalty kicks.
Yep.
And lo and behold, Middlesbrough wins 3-1 on penalty kicks.
So you have the quarterfinals. You have 3 teams from the championship.
This is just a sad quarterfinals.
League Cup. I'm not sad. Everton's in, so I'm happy with that.
Well, from an overall perspective, Manchester City has got Hull City the next game, Everton, Middlesbrough, Stoke City, Sheffield Wednesday, and Southampton, Liverpool.
Well, the Hampton-Liverpool game will be fun because they just tied over the weekend 1-1 on Sunday. I'm interested in this Everton-Middlesbrough game. I'm actually, as an Everton fan, I'm nervous about that. But that's also my go-to state of being.
So you're always nervous as an Everton fan, I feel like. I haven't never heard you be confident about an Everton game. Like, we will win. You're like, well,
yeah, I think maybe once last season.
Well, Everton Sunderland this coming weekend. How do you feel about that?
That one I feel Everton should take. I wasn't trying to call Everton something else.
No, of course not.
No, it's Sunderland. Now, granted, they destroyed Newcastle, but then you look at that and say, Okay, well, it's Newcastle.
Yeah, you're supposed to destroy Newcastle. They're 19th on the table.
Yedlin, I was very happy to see played quite well.
Mm-hmm.
Made some runs up front from the back. And if anything, that Yedlin would be the player I'd be scared of most if I'm Everton right now.
Fair enough. No, that makes total sense, honestly, with how they've been playing. So I mean, you look at the League Cup. Neither of us can. We're just learning our words tonight.
Yeah, not good at English today.
Can't.
Stoke City and Sheffield Wednesday. I think that's the one game we didn't mention that makes up the quarterfinals.
Yes. Yep. I think it'll be an interesting grouping of these 4 quarterfinal games. But aside from that, I know we briefly touched on it, but let's dive into a little bit more. Is Jose Mourinho really on the hot seat now, Simon?
I do think so. I mean, Abramovich hasn't come out and said anything, but you're Chelsea. You're still sitting 15th in the league. It's 10 games in. Look, that's a third of the season, basically.
Enough is enough.
And then you go in the League Cup, you drop an egg there.
Yeah. I
mean, at what point then do you start saying, especially with how quick these teams fire managers? At the same time, what I can see is that I don't think Mourinho would go to a place like Aston Villa. But we did hear recently that his agents have been talking to Inter Milan as well as another club. It's not there right now. But so his agents are in contact with other clubs, and they keep saying it's in the context of what he's going to do after Chelsea.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm starting to think that he's sensing the after Chelsea is going to come sooner than the end of his contract.
And how long before he finds a new home?
He'll be snatched up in a second.
Oh, yeah. But does he stay in the Premier League?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Villa right now is the only club.
Bring him to MLS. Why not?
Sure. Well, he did say one day he'd like to come over and coach in MLS.
Now is no better time than the present.
Yeah,
Let's just do it now.
I think it would be awesome.
Have him coach the Orlando Pride.
There you go. So the NWSL.
Yeah, send him over there.
There you
just
go.
Completely I don't even know what would happen. That would be so.
Hey, he can't.
So funny.
He can't handle working with a female medical doctor. I can't expect him to work. And that is not a slant on women, by the way. That's a slant on Jose Mourinho, or Jose Mourinho. Just to clarify that.
Of course, no, I totally understand you on that one. One other thing we wanted to make mention of, you mentioned the possible rumors of Bob Bradley going to Aston Villa, but there's another man that is also looking for a job right now that recently had to start standing in line at the unemployment office. That was Brendan Rodgers as well. Do you think that Brendan Rodgers would be a suitable filler for Aston Villa?
I think he would be in that, he took Swansea from being a championship club and brought them all the way up to the Premier League, which helped them. And then he did a wonderful job keeping them up there, and then Liverpool snatched him up. So I think for him to go to a club that's going to have less expectations, it'd be a breath of fresh air for him. At the same time, he got beat up pretty bad there by the Liverpool fans. They never really trusted him at all, really. So as much as I could see Villa reaching out to him, and I wouldn't be surprised if they haven't already, realistically, I don't think we'll see Rodgers the rest of the season.
Likely not. No, I think he'll wait until whatever that is, Black Monday or whatever they call it in the Premier League, and he'll be probably one of the first names that'll be back up on the team sheet to possibly do something. It's very rare that you see a guy get fired from one team and signed by another team in the same league within a short amount of time. To my knowledge, it hasn't happened in a long time.
Right. Yeah, I haven't seen it either. Another coach, though, another manager that's been up there is David Moyes as well.
Oh, David Moyes, former Man United manager.
Right. A lot of people thought that the game had passed him by, which I think is unfair to base that off of one season with Manchester United. He was at Everton for 10 years. And if that club is strapped financially now, boy, it was really strapped then.
No kidding.
And he got that team to a Europa League spot. He got that team to be a formidable club.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't talk about Everton and not say that David Moyes never did anything for him, because he helped them establish the fact that they are trying to become a relevant, maybe top 6 team in the Premier League.
Right. So I think, you look at these managers who, okay, maybe they haven't done well with the big clubs, but what did they do when they were with those smaller clubs? That's really, to me, what you have to look at. And both of those guys will be right up there. And I think Moyes would love to come back to the Premier League on top of it.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you on that one. Now, you think, is there anybody else that you think might be a possibility for taking over?
I think, the odds don't have him as the guy, but I certainly think Nigel Pearson.
Oh, sure.
He again, did a wonderful job with Leicester.
Yep.
Turned them around. And he got a little snidey with the media. But that was the man
what
who
are you
was
going to do?
Right. And that was the man who was responsible for turning them around at Christmas and then brought them and, made them into a stronger club again, like Brendan Rodgers did with Swansea, like David Moyes did with Everton. But he's had some time off now because he was let go of during the offseason.
So he's had a little bit more time to maybe refine his tactics.
Pearson as the next manager of Aston Villa.
All right. Well, we're going to jump to a break. We'll be right back. There'll be more 2 Up Front to come. Do not miss it. Welcome back to another edition of 2 Up Front, presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Baxter Colburn.
And this is Simon Provan.
A reminder for all of you that you can get us right here on Sports Radio America on Fridays from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and also on demand anytime you want on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and on Spreaker.com as well, at Baxter Colburn, at Simon Provan, and at 2 Up Front Soccer as well. Tweet at us. Let us know your thoughts about the wonderful world of soccer. Give us your predictions for the MLS playoffs, which we'll be talking about a little bit later on. And just if you ever have any soccer questions or just want to talk about the beautiful game from an American perspective, you can get a hold of us that way. Also, some new information coming out, Simon, about the USL. Not only do we have a new champion, but we also have a new team as well.
We do. So the Rochester Rhinos have their first championship in the USL. They were one of the powerhouse clubs, again, back when I was in college and even a little bit before that. Back before MLS, the Rochester Rhinos were a storied franchise. Everybody actually expected them to be in Major League Soccer because as a minor league club in the old A-League, they were actually averaging 12 to 13,000 fans a game.
Holy cow.
And they ended up building their own soccer-specific stadium. The problem was they had built it in a neighborhood that was, let's just say, not the most kind. And their attendance plummeted. So all the talk about when MLS was coming out, all the talk about them being basically the Green Bay Packers of Major League Soccer just went out the window. But their attendance has gone up a little bit. We're back up in the 8,000s, but the club is really hoping that this championship obviously starts bringing those fans back. It really is a cool stadium. I haven't been there myself, but I've seen plenty of pictures. Mm-hmm. Looks like a cool place to go to. But they ended up beating the LA Galaxy Dos 2-1 in the USL Championship game. Ariel Lassiter had a second-half goal. Lassiter is, I believe, the son or nephew of Roy Lassiter of the old Tampa Bay Mutiny. Yeah. So congratulations to the Rochester Rhinos, USL champions for 2015. By the way, this is their 20th season as a club. What a way to celebrate by
absolutely way to bring it all home. And that's a true cup. You look at that trophy. That is a great looking. I mean, it looks similar to MLS Cup, but it's still a good-looking trophy. So congratulations to the Rochester Rhinos, who, by the way, are a feeder team for the New England Revolution.
They are. Although they're becoming one of the fewer and fewer USL clubs that is not owned by an MLS team.
Yeah, and I think it's just we're kind of moving to that point now, though. Which is fine.
Yeah.
I have no problem with it. I think it's going to help keep things around longer, especially in minor league soccer.
We see the German clubs do it all the time with they've got teams in the Bundesliga 3 and the Regionalliga or whatever it is that I think that's like their 4th division. So hey, if the Bundesliga can do it, why can't MLS?
Exactly. And you talk about it, another team now that will be getting a USL team, that is the Philadelphia Union. They now have an old name, but a good name if you are a huge U.S. soccer fanatic.
And, if you love your U.S. soccer history, which I encourage you, if you don't know much about the turn of the century, not the turn of the 2000, but the 1900s.
Whoa, that's a long time ago.
Right? Bethlehem Steel, they were the first powerhouse soccer club in this country. And that was when soccer, which many people don't know about in the U.S., was actually one of the biggest sports.
It was. All the immigrants were coming over.
They were coming over, but even Americans were going to these games. That already clubs were coming over to the U.S. at that point doing tours. I know Celtic came over a couple of times.
Yep.
And then what happened, there was this war between the American Soccer League and some other soccer league, and basically that happened right around the Great Depression, which caused those leagues to just implode, and there went soccer until... Well, we had this little thing that happened in 1950 where the U.S. beat England 1-0 in the World Cup. But really, it wasn't until the mid-'90s that things started to pick up steam again. But just talking about the history here, Bethlehem Steel, the first incarnation, they were the league champions 1913 through 1915, the 1919. Basically, they just won a bunch of league championships.
9 total.
9 total, 5 runners-up in that time. Most importantly, they were the National Challenge Cup winners 5 times. That was the predecessor to what is now the U.S. Open Cup.
Okay,
so that basically morphed into the U.S. Yep, that basically morphed into the U.S. Open Cup. There was also the American Cup. So it's kind of like how England has the FA Cup and the League Cup. That was also going on here.
How British of us.
Yes, very much so. Yes, but as I said, the big thing was they won the National Challenge Cup 5 times. Then Bethlehem Steel was called Bethlehem Steel, by the way, going back to the Green Bay Packers, because that was the name of the company that sponsored them.
Yep.
So once again, for all of you who hate the name New York Red Bulls, thinking it's just corporate blah, 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 I don't know what the actual name would be for them. I'm going to go with blah, blah, blah.
That's fine. That's fine.
It's nothing new. Bethlehem Steel.
Red Bull Corp.
There you go. It's nothing new in this country. So if that really, really bugs you, I hate to tell you, but not just soccer. That's what most sports teams in this country were named after, were whoever owned them.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
We see that. I mean, Pittsburgh Steelers, I know there wasn't an actual, there was probably like the Pittsburgh Steel Company or something of that nature too, but you look at all the different teams across so many different sports venues, and you have those ties to sponsorships, to the local communities as a whole, which is fantastic. But looking forward now for the USL, looking at Bethlehem Steel, how much pressure is actually on this franchise going forward? I know that it's kind of like it's almost like a reboot of a movie series. It's like, hey, this was pretty successful back when we first did it. Now we're taking the same thing, same name, but now we're going to reboot it now a bunch of years later and try it again.
Right. Well, first of all, let me just say I think it's great that the Philadelphia Union has always honored the history of Bethlehem Steel.
Yep.
From the beginning, their third jersey for the past couple seasons has been the old black and white Bethlehem Steel jersey from the 1920s. And in case I didn't say it, so the reason we're talking about this is because the Philadelphia Union now has a USL team. Their development squad is called Bethlehem Steel FC. And they've done a really cool job with the logo, I have to say. They took the old red I-beam of the Bethlehem Steel logo and have the Philadelphia Union snake wrap around that. Their colors, unfortunately, are also the same colors of the Atlanta United FC, Barcelona, Intercity, whatever they're calling themselves down there. But really cool job. So your question, how much pressure does this put on them? I don't think it puts any more pressure on them than it does Galaxy Dose or Timbers 2 or Sounders 2?
I think that it's totally different, though, with the name. It's one thing to say LA Galaxy Dose. It's like, oh, it's just the second tier of the Galaxy. This is a franchise that was incredibly successful, that basically paved the road for U.S. soccer as a whole.
Did you know about them until I informed you about them?
I did. I knew of the name, yes. Okay. I knew of the name. I had never heard the official name going back and forth with Philadelphia. I knew that they were getting a USL team, but then I put 2 and 2 together once you mentioned it off air. But this is a team that I feel like really has a lot of pressure building up onto it because it's not branded as a Portland Timbers 2, Vancouver Whitecaps 2, TFC 2. It's none of those. It is a whole nother name entity that is representing years and years of U.S. soccer history. And I feel like if this team doesn't come out and produce right away, that there might be some downfall with the organization.
I can totally see why you say that. At the same time, I'd like to think that the fans are smart enough to realize that ultimately it's a name that pays homage to a club from the early 1900s, but that it's not Bethlehem Steel. You know, these guys aren't coming out of the grave.
Obviously,
and it is a development squad. And as much as I don't care for how Philadelphia fans cheer for their teams or lack thereof, I think their soccer fans are intelligent enough to realize that again, it's a development squad.
Exactly.
Now, let me just say, I love the fact that they have a name that's unique. That
it's
not
I'm
Union
tired
2.
of the dose.
Right.
I'm really tired of that, and I think that that's great for it. I mean, even looking at Rochester, the Rochester Rhinos, that's the funnel team for the Revolution, but you don't see, the Revolution 2 or whatever it is.
No, but those are also two separate entities.
They're separate entities, although they do have partnerships that they go on loan and whatever. But even still, it is nice to not have all these dose teams because let's just be honest, that gets really annoying after a while. It's like, oh, FC Dallas Dose is playing Orlando City Dose. Well, that's annoying. I just have a little bit of diversity and step out of your comfort zone at least a little bit, please. Like it's a little ridiculous on that, honestly, but I also know that there are rumors of possibly already another USL team that's coming up as well, this time coming in Kansas City.
Yeah, it was actually just announced a couple days ago. Swoop Park Rangers. So they're playing in Swoop Park, so that's where the name comes from.
Makes sense.
And that's going to be their club name is the Rangers. Now, I give them also credit that they got a different name. It's not just Sporting KC 2, but it's the Swoop Park Rangers. But what they did do is they're using the same colors, and they're using kind of the same font for their merchandising, which I think is smart to do.
If they're going to play at generally the same area, use generally the same fans, it's almost exactly the same logo. They've got a pretty nice logo.
Yeah, they do. So it's a hearkening to Sporting KC, but they've got the S and then a P and an R in front of it. Actually, to be honest, I like that better than the Sporting KC logo.
I do too, honestly. Yeah, looking at it, comparing the two, I think Sporting KC's is a little much, honestly.
It's interesting, too, isn't it, that you've got teams out there like Sporting KC with, let's face it, another Euro copy of a name.
Yeah.
And then they have a USL club that actually has a unique name, the Rangers. Now, of course, there are the Rangers in Scotland.
Well, sure.
But it's not just your typical FC, whatever. Baxter, you got an update for us, speaking of MLS and clubs and whatnot.
Yes. We're going to be jumping to MLS playoffs in just a moment, but the New England Revolution have gone ahead with a 1-0 lead in the 16th minute. Juan Agudelo cashing in on a right-footed shot from the center of the box to the top right corner, assisted by Kevin Alston with the cross. So Juan Agudelo in the starting lineup tonight for the first time in a while. So glad to see that he's making the most of his time as a starter. So good for the Revolution.
And I'll tell you what, I'm happy for you. I actually thought DC was going to win this game.
Well, it's still a long time to go. So let's not get too ahead of ourselves here. That's great that you're already congratulating me, but we've got a long way to go. Let's be honest about that. But I think that's a good segue, though, for us to jump into what is happening now in the MLS playoffs. The 4 knockout round games taking place today. Today here being Wednesday for those of you that are listening, and on Thursday night also. So by the time this show airs on Sports Radio America, it'll be old news. But that's what we go off of here on the show.
Right.
So we do what we can. So from what you just heard from us, the Revolution are taking on DC United right now. It's already a rivalry game between the two clubs, so it makes it even bigger now that it is coming to playoff time. New England, I feel like the fact that they won their last game of the season 3-1 was a big push for the organization going forward because that kind of helped them assert themselves, saying, look, guys, we're sorry that we had that 4-game losing, not winning streak at all. Finally got their act back together. Yes, I know they beat the New York City FC, but even still, they still scored 3 goals. They looked good. Charlie Davies got back to his original form, which was great to see, and now they can finally move forward and I think use that momentum now not only to beat DC, but make another deep run in the playoffs.
And let me say, it doesn't matter who you beat on that last day heading into the playoffs. You need a victory when you've been in such a bad place as New England has. So, I don't care. I don't care if they were playing Bethlehem Steel FC and they won that game.
Exactly.
That's a win you need going to the playoffs. And I just want to say, kudos to MLS for Decision Day.
Yeah.
yes, they lucked out a little bit, but boy, did that live up to its billing. I was sitting there at home on my MLS Live. I had my 3 games up on the screen, and then I had my phone there as well, watching all 4 games happen simultaneously, watching Seattle get a goal, going, oh, no, I don't want Seattle to score. But then Portland goes and scores, and then we see who was next in the line. Anyways, it was just like bam, 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 bam. So it was really fun to have those games simultaneous and to actually have them be the games that they were. Columbus Crew taking care of DC 5-0.
My gosh, just a ridiculous game from them.
Philadelphia taking any hope away from Orlando, winning that game 1-0. You had picked Toronto.
I did.
No, actually, I think I picked Toronto. No, it was, yes.
Yeah, I picked Toronto.
Yeah. And it looked like they were going to win that game. They were up 1-0, then Drogba does what he does.
Doing Drogba things.
2-1. Red Bulls finished the season Supporter Shield winners because of goal difference, beating the Chicago Fire, who's been a bit of their nemesis this season.
Yeah, they have.
2-1. Sporting KC taking care of business. LA comes to visit. Sporting needed that win.
I say, how big is that win for that organization?
Right. Of course, it wouldn't have mattered in the end because San Jose ended up losing to FC Dallas, but for quite a while there, it looked like San Jose was going to get the points they needed, but they didn't get the rest of the results.
Yep.
Seattle Sounders, I have to hand it to you, Seattle. My goodness. Dempsey, Martins, they're back. And
such a dangerous combination.
3-1. Vancouver taking care of business. They needed that win to get the number 2 seed, and they did because the Portland Timbers, for most of the night, looked like they were going to jump from number 4 up to number 2, and just a couple of weeks ago they were at number 6. Actually, they were out of the playoff picture there.
Yeah.
So the Portland ends up finishing in the number 3 seed with a 4-1 win over the Rapids. Baxter, if we were to go back and do our power rankings, for the first time, I would have the Portland Timbers in my power rankings.
I thought you've had them at least in there once.
Maybe
before.
once?
I think
okay.
so, at least once.
Well, how about this? For the first time, I'd have them in there confidently.
There it is. Okay.
They end the season on a 3-game winning streak, beating Real Salt Lake 1-0. Then they beat the LA Galaxy in a 5-2 thrashing at the Home Depot Center.
What a game.
And then they come out and just destroy the Rapids 4-1. If I'm the Timbers, any team that's playing the Timbers right now, I'm scared.
I would be too. I mean, Sporting Kansas City has to play the Timbers Thursday night.
In Portland. And that's the other big thing about that. Jumping up to that 3 seed.
Yep, gave them home
got
field
Portland.
advantage.
Yeah, almost got that bye. We just needed to see Vancouver tie. But Vancouver, well deserving. They had a bit of a stretch there in the middle of the season where they didn't look very good. But,
we were talking about that for a while. We were like, this Vancouver team might not be as good as we thought they were.
Right. But New York Red Bulls, deservedly so, one of, I would say, the most consistent team throughout the season. Early on, they had a bit of a losing streak, but since then, they've been really consistent, well-deserving of that supporter shield.
Absolutely, yeah. You've got to be completely thrilled if you're a Red Bulls fan going forward. Yes, you may have tied in point difference with FC Dallas, but you prove that you are the best team in Major League Soccer as a whole going forward, so that is a fantastic thing for the Red Bulls organization to a club that really looked like they had no clue what was going to happen last year after Jesse Marsch, after losing Henry, Tim Cahill.
And Ali Curtin comes out with his 500-page tactical book of how they're going to turn things around.
So, this will be easy, guys. And sure enough, they made it look pretty easy,
they
honestly.
Did.
Now, I will ask your opinion about this game that is also taking place later tonight here on Wednesday with the Galaxy and the Sounders. The Galaxy not looking really good. Honestly, I would not be surprised if Seattle found a way to win this game, even though that LA's always been that thorn in Seattle's side in the playoffs.
Right. Even when they're playing Seattle in Seattle, you kind of expect Galaxy to win. But no, Baxter, talking about confidence, I'm going to confidently take Seattle on this one, believe it or not. But yeah, Galaxy, they've for as great as they looked for 3/4 of the season, they look like they're on crutches right now. I'm not sure what's going on down there.
And one of the arguments I've continuously heard, not only on our program, but other programs as well, is that, but this is Bruce Arena's time. This is when the Galaxy remember how to play soccer. This is when they go on their crazy, ridiculous runs, regardless of how they finish out the season. And Bruce Arena always finds a way with Steven Gerrard, Giovanni Dos Santos, Gyasi Zardes,
Robbie Keane.
Yeah, you can go on and on and on about how many great players they have on their team, which is true. But it's a whole nother game when they can't put it all together.
It's interesting. To me, they made the same mistake in CONCACAF Champions League that Portland did last year.
Mm-hmm.
If Galaxy had gone down to Guatemala and won that game, which they were winning up until the 93rd minute, if they win that game, they're the number 1 seed in the quarterfinals. But we see Bruce Arena wants to get a higher seed in the playoffs. So instead, he sends Dave Saccharin down there with his reserve players. Reserves played a great game.
They did.
Alan Gordon got in there. But then they give up a goal in the 93rd minute. That cost them the first seed all the way down to the 5th seed in the quarterfinals.
Man.
And then they come home, and we see the same thing happen here. Drop all the way down to the 5th seed. I always say, I say the Timbers did that last year. It was actually more of an expense. The Timbers could have gone from being the number 1 seed in the CONCACAF quarterfinals last year.
Yep.
To not being in the Champions League at all.
Yeah.
Well, Porter risked it. Sent reserve players down there. They lost.
They got spanked because of that.
And they come home and they win, but they needed Vancouver to lose last year, and Vancouver wins.
Yep. It was just an unfortunate series of events for Portland last year. But look at the Galaxy, though, Simon. They've only won once in their last 7 games.
Yeah, that was against a strong FC Dallas team, which is a bit mind-boggling. But they gave up that draw to Seattle, which was a heartbreaker for them. I don't think they've ever recovered from that. They go on and lose to Portland 5-2. Then, of course, they lose on the last day 2-1 to KC. It's not looking pretty for the Galaxy, which does make you think, okay, is it Bruce Arena's time? Is this where we see him take advantage of this?
Maybe Jose Mourinho needs to take in charge.
There you go.
Say, fire Bruce Arena, bring in Jose Mourinho, go from there.
Baxter, who else do we have on the docket for these?
Well, it's a repeat of Decision Day as Montreal will host Toronto FC, the 4th and the 5th seeds, battling it out in the Eastern Conference. Congratulations to Montreal. Honestly, they just played a great season overall, a great comeback from them. They look like a great team.
They did, and then on the other end, Toronto, yes, they make the playoffs, but as the 6th seed.
Yeah, I'm sorry, 3 and 6, not 4 and 5. I'm sorry,
right,
3 and 6.
Right, but Toronto makes it in as the 6th seed. We had talked about 2 weeks ago, maybe it was last week, about how it's great if Toronto makes the playoffs, but it's just not going to feel legitimate if they do it as a 6th seed.
Yeah.
Because this is the first year of 6 seeds. And
so
lo and behold,
they wouldn't
have made it. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you got to make an argument that Toronto might have figured out what to do now since they have Sebastian Giovinco playing at such a high level. He's the 2015 Golden Boot Award winner.
And he wasn't there. He wasn't playing due to suspension, I believe, in the last game of the season.
I thought he was there.
Was he?
I might have been wrong, but I thought he was there, honestly. So Montreal, they are going to try to win again for the second time in a row against TFC. I have to go with Montreal on this one. I think that the Drogba whatever is just too high right now.
Yeah, the Drogba factor is definitely high and alive. He scored both goals, didn't he? If I remember right.
He did.
Yeah, both goals within a minute of each other, if even that.
That's what he does.
Yeah, and I was wrong, yes. Giovinco did play in that last game. In fact, he had an assist to Josie Altidore. He actually scored a goal.
He played 90 minutes? Whoa. Thought he was red carded on the bench.
Right. So, anyways, I've got Toronto in this one too, Baxter. Without a doubt, I got Toronto.
I took Montreal.
I'm sorry. That's who I meant.
Are you sure?
Whew, I did. I meant Montreal. Mm-hmm. I did.
Okay. As long as you understand what you did there.
So far it's Seattle and Montreal. That's who I'm taking.
Okay, and I've got Seattle and Montreal also. I've got my Revolution winning tonight also, hopefully, Lord willing.
I told you that I thought DC would win, so that will have to be my pick.
That's fine. No, I respect that. All right, Portland and Sporting, the last of the knockout round games. The first time MLS has ever had 4 knockout round games, which I think is a good idea. Ups the ante a little bit. I'm tired of these straight out of the gate 2-game series.
Are you a fan though that it was a 72-hour turnaround from last game of the season to these knockout
I think it was
rounds?
A bit fast. I think that Montreal, if I was Toronto, I probably was like, we're not going home. Let's just hang out for a few days and just train here in Montreal. For Galaxy, Seattle, I think all these games, aside from Portland Sporting, didn't really bother anybody because they didn't have to go very far.
That's very true.
LA just has to shoot up the West Coast. New England shoots up the highway just a few hours. Montreal are already pretty close also. But Portland, or Sporting having to go all the way to Portland, I think would have been the biggest one out of all of these. So
yeah, I don't know if it's. I heard somebody else make this argument. You play these 34 games during the season, and then all of a sudden you do this quick turnaround. Is that really fair now that we're talking playoffs? And I don't know if it is. At the same time, that's the difficulty you run into now with adding 2 more seeds.
It is.
Overall.
You have to, from a scheduling perspective, you got to do so much more on the back end to figure it all out.
It scares me, Baxter, because I'm taking my Timbers to take care of business in Portland. I think that hard-fought battle that Sporting had is going to have them tired. They haven't always been clicking. They've been a bit of a worry recently. That was a great win they had against the Galaxy. But Namath has been playing well. Dwyer's been playing well. Feilhaber, as big of a fan of his as I am, he's been a bit inconsistent
recently.
Right.
And you look at the Sporting defense with Matt Biesler, Seth Sinovich. Those guys have all played pretty good, but. Yeah, I mean, in this game, it's hard for me to go against Portland, but I like what Sporting does offensively, so I'm going to have to go with Dom Dwyer and company winning this game.
All right. Yeah, we'll see. Portland's had 10 goals in their last 3 games. Darlington Nagbe finally has woken up, and that's actually the main reason I'm taking Portland is because of Darlington.
Yeah, he won MLS Player of the Week.
U.S. citizen now as well.
Yeah, get him in, Jurgen. I'd be fine with that, honestly. I would have no problem with that. Coming in.
At least call him in, give him a shot.
Put him in, coach.
Of course, he'd be playing like left back or something.
He'd probably play goalie. Put him in, why not? So the winners of the games tonight and Thursday will move on to play games on Sunday. The Red Bulls and Columbus Crew hosting those games in the East, and FC Dallas and Vancouver hosting in the West.
Of course, they'll play the lowest seed that comes out of these.
Yep, the lowest seeds out of both winners will go to the first and second, respectively.
Yeah. So, people know. What am I saying?
I don't know. Why do we even do this? People know all about soccer, right? It's America. They think we know everything.
America.
Yeah. All right, we're going to go to a break. When we come back, it'll be time for our I Believe segments. I might go a little outlandish today. We'll see what happens. We'll be right back. This is 2 Up Front. Welcome back to another edition of 2 Up Front, presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Baxter Colburn.
And this is Simon Provan.
All right, Simon, a great show so far, talking about all kinds of things from the USL to the Carling Cup, right? Carling Cup. I got it right this time, not Carlington or curling or whatever the heck I thought it was. And a lot of other great things. We just talked about the MLS playoffs, some of the action going on right now during our recording, as well as tomorrow night on Thursday, plus the 2-leg games will be taking place on Sunday as well. So we have reached the part of the show, Simon, where we have a lot to talk about. It is our I Believe segment, and the way it works is that we both get to offer I Believe statements about anything we want to in soccer as a whole. Not just Major League Soccer, but soccer as a whole.
All over the place.
So I'm going to go first this week. I believe that I forgot my I Believe segment. Shoot. I literally just had it.
I'm so glad that happened to you.
Thank you.
And I'll tell you why.
Why?
I'll do mine then.
That's fine.
Because we've been doing a lot of talking, a lot of research this week. I'm really tired. And I realized earlier in the show I gave away my I Believe.
You did, yes.
But I'm going to say it anyways. I believe that Nigel Pearson will be the next manager of Aston Villa. Now, Aston Villa, by the way, for those of you who don't know, is one of those clubs that it is owned by an American. So let me just revisit that a little bit. I'm actually a little bit surprised that Bob Bradley doesn't actually get interviewed for this job. Again, he's done a fine job in Norway.
Absolutely.
He has been, the best club in Norway, granted I know it's Norway, but the best club in Norway has actually sought him out as well. Even though they're already in first place, they still wanted to have him come over
wants
there.
Bob.
Swedish club came over to interview him. So I'm surprised that if you would expect any club to give an American coach a chance, it would be a club owned by an American man, and that's the same man who owns the Cleveland Browns, by the way.
How's
Maybe
that
that has something to do with it.
That might be what it is. I think I remembered what my I believe.
Oh, okay,
I believe that I remembered what my I believe segment is. I believe, Simon, that there's going to be a rude awakening in L.A., and it's going to come in the form of Steven Gerrard. I think he is going to come out swinging in these playoffs, and either one of two things. He's either going to go completely outside of his mind and start playing at a higher level than we've ever seen him at, or he's going to be so confused at what's going on with the fact that he's in a playoff game and get red carded, and then LA is going to be lost without him.
You know, he did come out and say he didn't use the word frustrated, but if you read into his line, he came out and basically said that he's surprised at how well his teammates are handling the loss to Sporting Kansas City because he was really upset about it. So I think you're right. I think he's upset about that. He's upset that he's seen players that he feels like just don't care.
Yep.
And he's angry.
I don't want to get in Steven Gerrard's way if he's mad.
Well,
talk about today. Two Up Front has been presented by Sports Radio America. Remember, you can get us right here on Sports Radio America from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Fridays. Also on demand on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and on Spreaker.com. And we're also on social media, Simon.
We are on Facebook. We are Two Up Front. On Twitter and Instagram, our handles are the same, at Two Up Front Soccer. Baxter is at Baxter Colburn, and I am at Simon Provan. Pretty simple.
Best thing we can do to keep it for the listeners.
That's right.
Nice and simple.
I think it's more for myself than anything.
Probably. Same for me, too. I'm like, what's your Twitter? It's my name.
What's my name?
Yeah,
that's right.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in to another edition of Two Up Front. We will see you all again next week. Good luck to your favorite soccer team, regardless if they're playing in the United States or abroad. Good luck to them, and we will see you all again next week with our manager being the one above. We are Two Up Front.